Welcome back to the Means of Grace podcast, where we share stories of faith, community, and hope. I'm Jesse Ennis, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Reverend John Yeager. John, how are you doing today, man?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic, Jesse. And you want to know why?
Why is that?
Because the Florida Gators are still national champions of the college basketball world. And I am blessed this morning to have another Gator with us today. And I'm going to introduce him in a minute, but that's just a tease. Oh, yeah. I'm doing great for another reason. Because we're diving into a little Methodism. And not just Methodism, so a little history. Oh, my wheelhouse. Not just dry facts, but something more with some sparks. Sermon fodder.
All right. I'm looking forward to it. We recognize that Methodism was never really a blueprint drawn up in an office. A new denomination was not really a part of the original plan, was it?
Yeah, no. I don't even know if there was a plan. Early on, it was just a spark. It was, you know what? This one's not really working for me. The Anglican Church is what it is, but it lost a little fire. So it started to kind of move along, but like all great things, they tend to not start the way they end up. You kind of end up tumbling into it, and that's how you get the best stuff.
Yep, absolutely. It's one of those moments where you realize that the movement is still moving. God is still good. God is still working, and we are so grateful for the Spirit of God that works and moves through us as well.
Yeah, Methodism, it was born in conflict. There was a lot of conflict, and then really it did not catch fire until after the American Revolution. I mean, that's when everything really starts. So with it got birthed in fire, which is where we ought to stay, I think. But yeah, it's always been in motion too. And that brings me to my guest today. Oh my gosh, I am so excited, ladies and gentlemen. I say that because Methodism's always on the move, and one of the things we do in our denomination is we rotate clergy and district superintendents. Mm-hmm. You don't just have one for 30 years. We get them in and out like presidents, and they just go. We yank them out of the itinerary and throw them back in. Yeah. But the DSs, they see things from higher up, and so they've got to see all the moving parts and all the things going on. Our guest today is someone who knows a lot about shepherding a group of people in times like these. We are delighted to welcome the Reverend Dr. Mark Conforti, newly appointed district superintendent, author of Clergy Mentoring, The Tie That Binds, which explores the biblical, theological, and interpersonal dynamics of mentoring for clergy formation. He is a graduate of the University of Florida, go Gators, Duke Divinity School, and has a DMin from Wesley Theological Seminary. And his most recent appointment was as the senior pastor of First United Methodist Church, Salisbury, someone I'm grateful to have called a friend for a long time now. Mark, thanks so much for joining us.
Jesse, John, thank you. It's great to be with you.
So, Mark, you've stepped into a role that blends administration and pastoral care, history, and vision. And so we've got a couple questions for you today. First, I want to know what was it like for you to get the phone call that you were going to be a district superintendent? And we want to hear about your experiences so far and maybe even what has surprised you along the way. But first things first, how was it to get that call?
It was surprising. The first time that I spoke with the bishop about the possibility of serving in this kind of way was a while ago. And that prompted me to really think deeply and pray about what does this role mean. And I started going through my memories of district superintendents and the positive memories of their, significant impact. And I started taking notes, actually. And I started taking notes and thinking through, okay, if I were to serve in this role, what would I want to do? What would be a priority? How would I go about it? And the more I started thinking about what the role could be and should be, the more excited I became. So I received a notification to meet with the bishop and Reverend Amy Coles the following day. And so that, changed my entire schedule for that day and certainly changed the trajectory of the past, many months.
That's fantastic.
So were you excited? There's that moment where you're like, maybe I'm going to be DS. And then you're like, oh, I am. I'm going to be a DS.
Definitely excited.
Exciting.
And you know that one of those phrases that I think gained a lot of resonance over the past several years, two things can be true at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sad to say goodbye to the people in Salisbury, within the church, within the community. Sad to transition. We loved our parsonage, we loved our neighbors. And what's also true at the same time, being excited about what's ahead, a new chapter in
Mm-hmm.
ministry. And that has only grown, I'm happy to say.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you named that, because there can be a sense of like guilt, especially for clergy. Like John says, we move like presidents. But, stepping out of one church where you hopefully had an opportunity to really engage with people well and love those folks the way that you were called to. And, sometimes you step into a new role that is exciting. But that doesn't mean that you have to feel guilty about being excited, because you also feel you can hold multiple emotions at once. God has blessed us to be that way, and so
Holding things in tension.
Exactly, holding those types of things in tension, feeling sad, but also feeling very excited. And so I appreciate you naming that. How's your experience been so far as a DS? We're at the time of recording, it's August 25th, so it hasn't been too long.
Hasn't been too long. The first few weeks were filled with welcoming new pastors, driving around the district, visiting with pastors either at their new parsonage, at their church office, at a coffee shop, at a bakery. I've enjoyed that. Getting acquainted with our two terrific administrators, Lynn Gilbert, Londa Wallace, and I've really enjoyed working with them and getting set up in the district office. Visiting churches on Sunday morning and during the week, finding out how they go about things, how the preachers approach a text in their sermons, getting a taste of the different styles of music, which has been fascinating for me because First Church Salisbury, high church, liturgy, and music. It's beautiful and wonderful, grateful to be a part of it. But it's been amazing to sense how many churches have different styles of music.
That's phenomenal.
It is cool. So, do you have a? I was watching I think it was a football podcast recently, and they had a little segment called "Welcome." When was your welcome to the NFL moment? When have you had a welcome to being a DS moment? And if you can't tell us all the details, that's completely fine. But have you had a moment yet where you're like, "Oh man, that's on me"?
Yeah, and it happened even before I stepped into the role.
Man.
It happened at annual conference when a Yadkin Valley District pastor said, "Hey, can we talk?" Now, I was not
You said
officially
yes,
in.
didn't you?
Yeah, my response was, "Hey, I'm not officially in the role yet, and I have tremendous respect and admiration for Dr. Sam Moore. So let's wait." And we waited. But between the time that this pastor said, "Hey, can we talk?" and when we talked, it was on my radar and deep in my prayers and on the forefront of my thoughts, and still is, quite frankly.
Boom. How you doing? You holding up?
I feel like I'm holding up pretty well overall. This past week, I think, was a significant week for me and my family because all three of our kids are officially at their schools, getting started, and that's no small thing. And my wife has done an amazing job of keeping us coordinated and overseeing all the details involved with our move.
Why, have you been busy?
We've all been busy, right? And
Mary Ellen, shout out. That was to you. You got this.
Yeah. She's amazing. And
she is amazing.
She does wonderful work with an organization in Forsyth County called Crosby Scholars. They do what's called college accessibility programming for high school students, actually beginning in middle school, and for their families to help them make the jump to go to college. I'm really proud of her work in that. It truly is a ministry. It has a bigger vision for justice, especially for people. They might be the first ones in their family to go to college, and it can help break the cycle of poverty. And they do an amazing job of providing resources, training, and grant money too. So she had been working in Winston-Salem for the past few years, commuting. I'm really happy for her that she doesn't have that commute anymore.
Yeah.
And all of that has been a huge thing for us.
It's cool when things fall into place.
Yeah.
We're grateful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you had an energizing moment? What's given you life in these early days?
I've seen many connectional ministries within the district that have really energized me. One is led by the laity. They have been coordinating a district-wide fellowship event, and I'm looking forward to it. It's coming up October 18th at Tanglewood Park, and a time for clergy, laity, people throughout the district to just get together to celebrate our connection. It sounds so simple and straightforward. Let's enjoy food and share stories and listen to great music. But my goodness, those moments are so rare nowadays because people aren't as inclined to get out of their home and just be in person together. I'm energized by that. I'm also energized by other connectional ministries that have been working really well, thanks to the leadership of so many people. For example, there is a 4th and 5th grade annual retreat for churches. One church may have 1 or 2 kids in 4th and 5th grade, another church may have a dozen. But that tween age is really important, as we know, because kids are, it seems, forced to grow up a little bit sooner than it used to be. So placing a priority on this kind of ministry, I think, is fantastic. I'm so thankful for the people who make this retreat happen. All of that has energized me for sure.
Any challenges so far? Anything like surprised or anything that surprised you that you've encountered in the role? I know you said you did a lot of preparation and having conversations with folks, but does anything sneak up on you?
I don't think something has snuck up on me, but it's more like I realize how I'm responsible for information. And I carry that responsibility very seriously, but with joy and gratitude. And so when I have a conversation with somebody, I need to take notes and I need to remember and I need to figure out how it fits in. Something that has surprised me in an energizing way, not in a fearful way. I'll have a conversation with somebody, and I recognize I'm speaking in vague terms.
No, that's fine.
I'll have a conversation with somebody, and they give me insight into a conversation I had with somebody else the day before, and they had no idea that I had talked with this other person.
Right.
And that's happened many, many times. And quite frankly, I'm trusting it's God's way of revealing what I need in order for me to do this role well.
There is you're right. There's an inherent responsibility there to, at that level of leadership, to, when you're hearing all that, to use it, I guess, the way that it needs to be used. Hadn't thought about that. That's totally true.
I'm grateful for that blessing that the Holy Spirit is kind of connecting those dots to. I think for me, that's kind of a reminder that we're not doing this alone, and that we just kind of need to be faithful in doing what we're called to do, and that the Holy Spirit will provide the rest and close the gaps and things like that. I really appreciate you mentioning that. So as someone who I didn't necessarily grow up in Western North Carolina, like I did, but I didn't. Can you tell us a few things about Yadkin Valley?
Brag a little bit.
Well, and for clarity, I didn't grow up in Western North Carolina either.
Okay.
John and I are both native Floridians.
Nice.
And just for the record, and I'm going to get to Jesse's question in just a moment, I want people to know how important John's father is to me and my calling. John's father, the Reverend Bill Yeager, was our campus minister at University United Methodist Church and Student Center in Gainesville, Florida. And he's one of the very first people who spoke with me about a calling. And he's one of the people that encouraged me in very significant ways. I'll always be thankful for him. And I guess that means I have to be thankful for John, too.
Yeah, I know. That's just the worst. Connections are deep.
Yeah. So Yadkin Valley District is like many districts, I think, throughout the South. where times have been changing. People sense it, but they're not sure what to do about it. We have a wonderful blend of urban, rural, town, and country. We have many strong churches, healthy, vital churches. In fact, I would dare say Yadkin Valley District has more than its fair share of healthy, vital churches. Yeah.
Shots fired. District
Yeah.
superintendents. The
Now
gauntlet is
listen.
down. Love
Now, I'm really not a competitive person. I
He says with his gator tie on, representing the national champions. Yes.
Yeah. And so the churches within the district, I've seen so many wonderful clergy leaders, laity in leadership, doing fantastic things. Some of the other features that make Yadkin Valley interesting, though, just to go a little bit deeper, and I'm going to speak to this actually at the DS installation on September 21st, 3 p.m., Mount Tabor United Methodist Church, if anybody'd like to be there. You know, it's weird. I kind of feel like inviting someone to my birthday party.
Yeah.
So the soil is significant in Yadkin Valley because of tobacco. And other kinds of farming too, but the tobacco farming, the history is undeniable. Some ways fantastic and marvelous, others require repentance and forgiveness and reconciliation because of the deep wounds that it caused and the pain and the harm. I could speak about that in very personal ways, but just suffice it to say people are realizing, okay, this is not the 1950s anymore. What are we called to do next? Some other things about the soil. We have two of the best state parks in the Yadkin Valley District, Pilot Mountain State Park, Hanging Rock State Park. If anybody's looking for a day trip to do some beautiful hiking, put those two on your list.
Nice. Phenomenal. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Well, you ready for a Methodist story? We're going to connect some dots here. All right. And we're going to talk about it. So we are Methodists, and we have a history, and it has shaped us and defined us. And it needs to be, we need to understand where our footsteps were and help us kind of figure out where we need to be going. But at this time, we have just recently celebrated Labor Day here in America. So here's the picture. 1770s, revolutions in the air. Methodism, very young, not even officially a separate church yet, just a movement within the Church of England. And then the colonies start to boil. Boston Tea Party, no taxation without representation, full-scale rebellion. Wesley himself, well, he was a loyal Englishman. In 1775, he published a pamphlet called A Calm Address to Our American Colonies. For those of you who have seen the musical Hamilton, picture John Wesley as that guy who's speaking for the crown while Hamilton is just ripping him apart. God bless him. He did not want a war. Calm in title, but not so calm in reception in the colonies. In it, Wesley defended the British Parliament and scolded the colonists for the rebellion. He even borrowed heavily from a Tory writer without giving credit. Not his best moment. The colonists read it and saw Wesley as out of touch, a monarchist, maybe even a traitor. But here's the twist. The people called Methodists in America weren't loyalists by default. Many sympathized with the revolution, some fought, some tried to remain neutral, but they were caught in the crossfire. Francis Asbury, the great Methodist preacher in America, went into hiding for a time. When the war ended, though, the situation was dire. Anglicans were in disarray, cut off from the Church of England. Sacraments were scarce. The church in the colonies was almost gone. In comes Wesley again. Despite his earlier loyalties and a drumming by the American colonists, recognized that times are changing. In 1784, he ordained Thomas Coke and sent him to America and ordained Asbury. And that's the moment the Methodist Episcopal Church was born, Methodism's first steps towards becoming an independent denomination. So here's the paradox. Wesley opposed the revolution, but the revolution forced Methodism really into its identity. Without the war, we might never have become the church we are today, with the fire and honestly a kind of administrative system that looks a little like the American one. Right? Without the war, we might not have become what we have become. Out of political upheaval came a spark that shaped everything. And Mark, you mentioned that in your district, there's a sense of times are changing. Have been, maybe for a little bit. And now you're seeing that understanding, or that people are starting to notice, turning into action. That it's in these moments. Right? It's in the moments of turmoil, in moments of friction, tension, when some of the best theology has ever been written, some of the greatest churches and denominations have been born. Are we in one of those moments right now? Not revolutionary, necessarily. Let me back up. But a time of... Jesse's laughing at me. He's like, man, we're going to get cut. But we're in a strange time. Times are changing rapidly. There's a lot of anger and angst and issues that are boiling to the surface. Is this not only all of that, but an opportunity?
Absolutely. We've always needed to be attentive to what's happening in our context so that we can understand how to move forward. I think the current context is really turning up the heat in a way that perhaps people have not been anticipating or even wanting. Yeah. I think when we observe social needs, social injustice, many people are content to offer up a prayer. Some people are willing to meet a real physical need right now in the moment, such as providing food, maybe even shelter, maybe even being within close proximity to somebody in need. But then a rare few are willing to get to the heart of the matter to understand why things are the way that they are. So to go back to the training that the clergy in our conference experienced regarding racism, what about the groundwater?
Yeah.
How can we identify the sources of that tributary? Why is the soil the way that it is?
Yeah.
And how come when the water finds its way into the soil, into the ground, why is it causing injustice, hurt, and pain? A rare few are able and willing to do that kind of work, but that's what's needed.
Yeah, one of the things that I've for some reason been seeing in a lot of stories is the difference between like the Good Samaritan and that always gets kind of preached and taught as the first two are bad. Right? The priest and the Levite, they're bad, and then the Samaritan comes around, he's good. Right? And so he saves the day. And I said, you know what? In the midst of that story is really Jesus. The other stories around it are about sight, about seeing something other people don't see. And it finally struck me that the story wasn't about the first two being bad. The first two are fine. They're good people. I mean, nobody anywhere would be like, yeah, that Levites, they're the worst. I mean, there's a reason why he used those two. They weren't hated, and they were good people. It was just the common wisdom of the day was not to go stop and risk your life for who knows who, on the road. That's a mark for death. It was that the third had a special sight. It's not that he was good and they were bad. They were good. He was exceptional. And when Mark is talking about he's seeing some exceptional people there's plenty of good ones, but Mark's starting to see these exceptional people start to rise up. Right?
And if I could just speak to that a little bit more directly, there are 4 communities in the Yadkin Valley District that are really thinking deeply and taking action about how to be in ministry with people for whom English is not their native language. And people who may have come to the United States recently from another country. They're thinking very deeply about this and taking action. And I'm excited to partner with them. What I want to bring to this role as a district superintendent, I want to bring my pastor's heart, a strategic mind, and a commitment to the connection. So when I hear about what's already happening in these communities and others that I'm sure are emerging, I just haven't learned about it yet, I'm hopeful to provide resourcing and encouragement, and making sure that they get to do the ministry God is calling them to do. Trust is critical to ministry. We need trust within our relationships, trust within our accountability structures. And my sincere hope is that pastors within the district would find me to be a trustworthy leader on their behalf and for the sake of the connection.
I love that, and I love the ministry that's happening. It's in a way, it's a little bit of a reverse of what we've seen in Methodism in the very beginning. John Wesley coming here to meet with folks who are of a different country, of a different language, and ministering to folks. And now we are receiving folks. It sounds like, especially in your district, receiving folks with that same Methodist heart of sharing the gospel to folks who, may not look like us, have different cultures, different languages from us, and hoping to continue on in that. And so for me, I think that's very much a heartwarming story to hear. Which kind of leads us into a consistent segment that we've had called Strangely Heartwarming. Those moments that remind us of grace, the grace of God that is alive, even in turbulent times. So do you have another story of like a hopeful story of what's happening in your district?
Yes, campus ministry is happening. We have other institutes of higher education where campus ministry has been stymied, unfortunately. But I'm happy to say we have exciting things happening. And yes, it's thanks to clergy leadership. Reverend Ben Free at Winston-Salem State, he's appointed to St. Paul United Methodist, and part of his appointment is campus ministry. And that warms my heart because my first appointment after seminary was at Davidson United Methodist as an associate. And part of what I did was campus ministry. And so I'm excited to see what will emerge there. Ben is doing a fantastic job getting it up off the ground. He's just, his first semester. Campus ministry goes semester by semester, right? It's different than the annual conference year. And then at Wake Forest, Reverend Haley Givens, she's in her second year, and we're hearing amazing stories about great ministries happening, young people coming together and connecting in ways that hasn't happened in quite a while on that campus. So really excited about that. And part of what I'm hoping to do is to figure out how can congregations within the district support these two campus ministers and to support these college students, because these are some of the people who will eventually be active lay people in congregations, and maybe one or two may sense a call to ordain ministry. Who knows? But one thing I do know is many students who go to college in Winston-Salem love Winston-Salem, and they stay. It's happened quite a bit. And so it stands to reason if we can invest in these college students, they will indeed be some of our leaders in the future.
And what I love about that is such a critical moment in the life of an individual. You mentioned earlier how there's ministries for kids in 4th and 5th grade as well, and now you're mentioning this ministry for college age students, and it's for me a sign of a consistent biblical story where God meets us at critical points in our story, like Moses and the Israelites on the beach of the Red Sea, and Jesus right after baptism in the wilderness, like these critical moments where phenomenal things happen so that ministry can continue, so that ministry can flourish. I love that.
Yep. So now for something slightly different, epic fail. This is one of Jesse's favorites because Methodism has never been perfect and never will be perfect. No. So while we're moving on to perfection, we fail.
Yep. We fail.
So, Mark, I dare you. What have you failed yet? And we use fail as a learning experience, 100%. Because
exactly.
Well, just yesterday I was preaching at Sedge Garden United Methodist Church, and I knew that I needed to wait for a video to be played before I got up to preach, but I just stood up and started speaking, and there goes the video. Oh boy. And so then I had to, pause and set up the video again, and
love it.
Took a deep breath. And then I was beginning the sermon from the pulpit, but there was a point that I wanted to step away and start, meandering a little bit. When I did, no one could hear me anymore, even though I had on a lavalier microphone. And I could tell. I could tell from the facial expressions and from that they couldn't hear me. And then the fella up in the back says, "Your mic is muted." And so that was just yesterday, 2 fails.
Yeah.
within about 5 minutes of each other.
Nice.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for sharing that, because I think one of the things as we do these podcasts and we celebrate the good things that are happening and the way that God is moving, we don't want anyone to ever feel like, oh, things in my life are just not going well. There's no way God is working. I'm sure, at time of recording, today is Monday. I'm sure yesterday, Sunday, we had tons of technical difficulties, because I believe that that's when technical difficulties go into full gear. And so for all of you listening out there who had a tech difficulty yesterday, you are not alone.
That's right. And that's the best part of Epic Fail, is letting everybody know everybody fails.
Yep.
Just roll with it.
So today we saw how Methodism was tested by fire, from pamphlets and revolutions to the birth of a new church in the world.
If you carry one thing with you, let it be this: God's work is not limited by our politics or our mistakes, even our epic fails. The sparks that shaped Methodism came out of movements of upheaval, times of difficulty, and they're still igniting today.
Absolutely. And we got an opportunity to hear how those sparks are flying, how God is on the move in the Yadkin Valley District. So we want to say thank you to Reverend Dr. Mark Conforti for joining us and for sharing from his new role as district superintendent.
Any final thoughts, Mark?
I'm just grateful to be with the two of you. I enjoy listening to these podcast episodes, and it's just an honor to be on this episode. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And thank you for listening. This is the Means of Grace podcast. Stay connected, stay hopeful, and remember, as always, you are not alone.
Amen.